Not all of us here at Twinstick have given up on Blizzard. In fact, some of us are completely obsessed with their newest title, Overwatch.
Draw them into my web.
I've talked about this game before and how its core gameplay mechanics, such as the rock, paper, scissors system, are really helping change up the multiplayer scene for FPS games. But today I want to talk about the unique ways in which Overwatch deals with the dramatic elements of game design. But first, let's just go through a quick rundown on this age-old design philosophy.
Empty your mind. Focus on the task at hand.
Formal elements of games are, simply put, the structure of a game. Without these elements, a game ceases to be a game. Objectives don't have to be exclusively defined by a game or activity. They can be open or determined solely by the player. Procedures are the what, where, and how, or the methods that a player interacts within the game environment. Procedures are also the methods that a player uses to interact within the game environment. And rules are quite clearly the agreements between the game and the player, such as the rule of gravity or how colliding with certain objects work. If a game doesn't clearly establish what the rules and context of the game is, it becomes frustrating over time. Dramatic elements are completely different. They're what bring context or emotion to the gameplay. Dramatic elements aren't required for a game to be a game, but they do add more drama or character to a game and its mechanics. Examples of dramatic elements would of course be premise, story, character, and most importantly, play.
You want to stay and dance, we can...
Let's go!
Oh, I don't really want to spend all my time lecturing you guys on game design, so let's look at what dramatic elements are presented within the game of Overwatch.
How wonderful.
The most obvious one is definitely character. While the game may have 22 characters, they hardly amount to how much pure character the game possesses. From the moment you load the menu, you can't help but notice the way the game presents itself. This feeling of confidence within the game is only furthered by its level design and of course those who inhabit it.
The best things in life come in small packages.
The most interesting thing about the game's dramatic elements are mirrored by the events surrounding the game. Overwatch is said to have been an organization of heroes that saved the world countless times but has since been disbanded, leaving many of the heroes to either become mercenaries or simply just reminisce about good old days before their project was basically cancelled.
But I do miss the old days.
It's hard not to think that this premise is shared by the development team, many of whom have also worked on Titan.
Everything about this project, whether that's visible to the end user or not, is our story.
And while these characters within Overwatch look back upon the days of old, younger characters that are almost always used as the anchor point for us as observers look up to these heroes. They become fascinated by them and want to be them, which is where we all come in to simply play.
Reality is my playground.
Play is the reason I personally love games of all types. Board games, video games, and no, I don't mean the act of playing a game. I mean the activity some games allow you to engage in. The act harkens back to when you were 4 or 5 years old and you went outside with some friends to play. While all games are played, yes, not all of them allow you to just play, to pretend, to become completely carefree, and to have fun. Only until recently have some modern game releases made me feel that I could actually engage in the activity of play through their systems. One recent one that sticks out is very clearly Rocket League, a game that literally recreates the feeling of playing with a soccer ball on the field but through the lens of a Hot Wheels toy. Overwatch creates a space for play far larger and far easier than maybe any other video game I've played. Certainly better than any shooter I've played. I love first-person shooters. I've loved it ever since I popped in GoldenEye on my 64. But no game, whether Quake, Doom, Halo, or TF2, really just let me play.
Aerial superiority achieved.
I love their competitive nature and conquering other players while navigating for health packs and ammo, but it never did recreate just playing on a field or playground in my youth. Overwatch surprised me when it showed me that not only could Blizzard manage to do this in a shooter, but also better than just about any other video game. In Overwatch, you play pretend. Much like my neighbors and I played Transformers in our frozen yards in Alaska. We would pretend David was Grimlock or I was Wedge, and we would need to complete some strange task we set for ourselves, and only Jake and Shelby, Megatron and Raptor, were in our way. But in Overwatch, you don't have to argue about who's going to be Optimus Prime, resulting in no one getting to play him. In Overwatch, if you want to pretend to be Winston, you can both be Winston. You can pretend there is an objective that you need to best your opponents to unlock, and all of your opponents can also all be Winston.
Did someone say peanut butter?
It creates a playground where anything is possible, where if someone pretends to be Starscream and has a power that beats everyone else, you can just say, no fair, it's my turn to be Starscream. I, admittedly, have done that myself in Overwatch, where I think, wow, that ability is crazy, I'm gonna try it out, and the game lets you. It lets you constantly experiment and play until you win or lose. But playing this game of pretend is only further elevated by the game's very prevalent rock-paper-scissors system, a system that takes time and recognition of counters and complements between the various roles you play as over time, allowing those who recognize the system to become better at playing pretend than anyone else.
I could do this all day.
Maybe that all sounds a little pretentious and jaded, but fuck it, play is honestly why I fell in love with games. As I mentioned before, play transcends all forms of games: video games, card games, board games, field games, and yeah, even the occasional mobile game.
Expect nothing less.
If you don't care about play, that's fine, to each his own, but when a game comes along and just lets me engage in my favorite pastime, then I can only see one thing to do: play.
To know yourself is to be at peace.
Overwatch will be a game that stands around for quite some time thanks to its strong dramatic elements, its premise of a world once run by heroes only to be a distant memory for us to reenact, the strong, confident characters who all deserve their own spin-off game, and all of it comes together in an environment where we all just get to play.